All right, thank you, Chief. Okay, the next item is item A6. It's a presentation on the proposal to form a race equity task force. This is an information item only, and this is belongs to Leslie Doggs. Go ahead, Leslie.
I'm unmuting myself. Okay, so let me get to the page here. So the whole goal and the whole purpose of, I sent you guys an email with some links, and I researched a bunch of other organizations that do the whole goal, and it has nothing to do with the mayor and him putting in through his recent policies regarding hiring. That's for staffing levels. My concern is the community at large. And so the whole goal is to have community members in our community with this. It's kind of like a parks commission, and it's kind of like an audit committee. It's input from our community regarding racial inequity and equality. And I say that because I'd rather be reactive than proactive. I don't want to respond. If you guys remember, a few years back, we had some hate crime distributed in people's yards and plastic bags with rocks. It was hanged on telephone poles. A group of citizens came to us and informed us regarding that. And then we were reactive accordingly. I want to just continuously be proactive and not reactive towards a situation that just happened. Let's start looking into the future. City of Seattle's done this. Spokane, sorry, I have a clock. Spokane County has it. Our county has it, but it's called a Human Rights Council. So I just think it's time. We are one of the biggest city in the county. We are the most diverse community in the county. And I want to say that with all the unrest going around us, this is something that we need to do. This would give a positive turn on the community. I lost track of how many letters we received via email from the community. It's at least a dozen or more. So there's a need for it, and I want to move in that direction. I know Bainbridge Island has one, and they just recently put it into place within the last year. They even have 2 city council members that sit on it, and they also pre-budgeted something for it as holding quarterly events. The county also holds events as well. My goal, and maybe into the future, is maybe hold some events, but my goal is to have this committee meet monthly, talk about some of the issues and concerns, and then let's bring it back to the council's table so we can look at our policies. A lot of our policies, some of our policies are old and archaic, like 1976. Let's bring them to today's time period and update them. And we need to recognize our community in that way. So that's what I have to say regarding that. I'm leaving it from there for questions.
Okay, we'll open up for questions. Michael, good now.
So I support this. I hadn't seen the Bainbridge thing, and I think in general that wasn't what I was imagining. A group that's going out to events and things. I was kind of, I think, imagining almost more like our work with the high school students, like where there's a group in the community that's having discussions and things like that, and then they come and interact with us, and sort of act as advisors, and really bring some kind of firsthand information to us. So either's fine. I mean, the way they can get information is by going to events and stuff. Of course, we're not having events right now. But I was wondering if there's any other models, Leslie, that you had a chance to look at yet. Some of the other cities you've mentioned.
Well, I've looked at a bunch, and the links that I gave you in the email will provide them. But okay. Most of them, the mission of them is to, and I wrote them down, to advise the county government, to advise the city council. So it's more to advise us as a government entity, to give their input. And then we as the governing body then decide, well, let's put some policies in place, or maybe we need to relook at our police department. And then that's where the mayor steps in. But it's more, it's more to be proactive of our community's needs and access in that way. But the ones I've read and looked at, it's an advisement committee, not, like Bainbridge Island is advising, but they're also doing quarterly events in their community as well. And I don't see that's a problem, but my goal is just to get one at least started and then go from there.
Yeah, and with what you've already kind of done in the community, do you know some folks that would be willing to step up and do this?
I definitely do. There's a bunch of individuals that sit on racial task force already. There's a Erase group, there's CARE, Kitsap Advocating for Immigrant Rights and Equality. So there's a bunch of individuals, some of our pastors in the community. I don't want to double make committee like our PAC, right? It's definitely going to be different than the PAC. It's going to talk about some injustices in our community and what we can do to move forward.
And the last thing, do you see anybody in the councils serving on this, or like is it led by council, or is this just a autonomous group that feeds back to us?
I foresee a council person being the council liaison to schedule the meetings, meet with them, and then bring back information to the council.
Great, thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments? Kevin, and then Mike.
I like it. The information in the packet that you sent from Bainbridge Island was really helpful. It's timely. It fits within our council goals to increase public outreach and develop policies that encourage civic engagement. Possibly, I'd like to see that if it does move forward, kind of maybe a topic at the group as well. I just did a quick, census, what's the makeup of Bremerton's race, and it seems like it's 75% white and, small amounts of everybody else. So it's 25% of the people that, would be in a minority status. And I look at the city council meetings that we used to have back when we could meet face to face, and I don't think that represents what we're seeing there. And just the timeliness of this all, I think it's a really smart move to just get out there and talk to people. The only reservations I have on it is that, well, we do have the opportunity to just go out and talk to people now. But I understand that there's a certain level of engagement that you'll get when it's when there's the power to actually change something rather than just voices getting in the room. So I'm very supportive of it. I did have a question on
presenting something.
The budget. Would there be a budget for it? Where would that come from? What would it be? And then I think Councilmember Goodnow answered asked all the other questions I had.
So what I see right now is because this is just the beginning stages, so I see it as getting a group of individuals together for this. I don't see a budget at the moment. My goal is just to get it implemented and then meet and have that discussion.
And then would this be a perpetual thing that would go on in infinity, or a 6-month pilot?
I would love to see it. As our community is evolving, I would love to see it being a continuous thing. We have our Parks Commission meets every month and it's continuous. We have our Audit Committee that meets every month, our Planning Commission, and I would love this to be another organization that is continuous throughout the years.
That's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mike Simpson.
Okay, so Councilman Dodds, you said that you wanted to be more proactive, and by being proactive, I'm that kind of opens the door to a lot of things. What are we opening the door to?
So I guess with these monthly meetings, right, we're going to be more informed of some of the concerns and issues in our community versus last minute we're met at a city council meeting and 20 people come in there requesting that we need to do something now. At least the conversation is being discussed on a regular basis versus 20 people coming into our council meeting and saying we need to do something because this is happening in our community. At least we're having the conversation on a regular basis. Nothing's going to blindside us, hopefully, and that we're more informed on a regular basis.
Okay, because I know that Councilmember Wheat has monthly meetings, and these issues should have been raised in those. I would assume that if there's this all-encompassing need to make this happen, I would think that that whichever of us is representing our districts would be able to reach into the community and find us. I mean, I know in my district, it's in the past it's been represented by 2 different persons of color in succession, and the issues that I encountered when I went door to door and knocked on the doors of the people that lived here and talked to them. It didn't have a lot of this stuff that was about race inequality here. People here in Bremerton are, by and large, not racist, and we see each other as equals. We see each other as co-partners in this broad community, and so I'm kind of at a loss for this. I'd like to learn more, but. This seems like a very nebulous thing to say that we're going to be progressive about this and proactive and move forward. But where are we going? I mean, we formed a more perfect union, not a perfect union. What is the end goal in this? What's the end state that we're trying to achieve?
So, I would say right now, if you were to doorbell your community, it's going to be different responses versus when you ran. But my thought process is having a continuous conversation, seeing a policy that we might need to make and redo, or seeing a question. And we live in a great county. We do live in the people are great here, but we also got to recognize that Bremerton is the biggest city and the biggest diverse group that we have, and we have a high population of low free and reduced school lunches. So that has a lot to say to our community, and we need to represent our community. I just see it when I had town hall meetings. My town hall meetings were more specific based on a topic, like the Wheaton Way transfer station, like the safety patrol, the volunteer safety patrol that we have. They were more specific, not open random conversations. So maybe our citizens have shared some of the comments with us, or maybe not. And I say that because they're there for a specific topic and they're not thinking racial inequity. But if you had a racial inequity, I bet you anyone who has a town hall meeting would have a very good turnout and definitely have a big discussion on it. I mean, just the emails alone, some of them are community members in the county and some live in our city. And if they're seeing it, then we need to answer to that.
Okay, and it still begs the question. Okay, based on its name alone, that this was a racial equity task force, it would imply that there are inequities specific to race. And we have a 14th Amendment for our federal Constitution that guarantees that we are treated all equally. And it's based on the premise that all men and women are created equal, and that we have an equality of opportunity. We've discussed this at several of the meetings in the past, that all of us have the opportunity to rise or fall on our own merits. And so I'm trying to find is what is the end state that you're trying to achieve, because this is just a very open and ambiguous idea that can go 600 different ways. And if we're going to have some sort of task force or committee, there should be some binding principle that anchors it to one thing. One thing that just appalls me about government is that when an opportunity is created for government to grow, it grows exponentially, and it doesn't just stop with one thing. It goes hog wild, and it jumps all over everything. The only way that you can rein government in because it's like a vicious junkyard dog, is to pinch the pennies on it to keep it from doing all kinds of crazy things. So when I ask you where you want to be progressive about this, I understand you have an end state in mind, but you're not stating what it is, and I'd love to hear that.
Well, one of the good things is we have a diverse city, and when you look at its elected body, we don't represent our community. I'm the only person of color on here. So I mean, we aren't representing our community 100%, and we need to have more people of color having this conversation. We have safe place stickers in place because we felt it's a push for our LGBT community so that they can feel safe. We didn't do it just because we want to decorate the windows. We felt there was a need and we put that in place. So I mean, it is an issue. I see Pat's hand and then Councilmember Weed as well. So
And
Eric, I don't know how I'm trying to figure out how we are moving this forward.
Well, I have some ideas, Leslie, and I might be able to help you on your way and maybe narrow it down to the mechanics of this. But as my role as president, I need to let other people ask their questions. So
I have no problem with that. I just want to make sure, that we're moving forward and stuff I
think I can help guide you to. I don't know if we'll come up with a resolution today of what this final mechanics, but I think I can ask you some questions when it's my turn. But
okay.
It's going to be Pat and then Lori.
Mike, would you mind if we put you on and ask Pat and Lori their questions?
Please.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I understand, and I very much support Councilmember Simpson's position. But before that, I'd like to start with thanking the mayor, because I've read every email that's come in and his response and what he has taken on and done for the city of Bremerton in the last 3 years he's been the mayor in regards to this whole entire issue. And one of the emails that he responded said something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing because I can't find the exact email, and I'm hopeful maybe the mayor will feed into this some with President Younger's approval, is that he's been working with these groups with and I'm sorry, I'm going to blow it because I'm horrible with acronyms. Thank you, and as well as the PAC team, the group that gets together for PAC. And if I remember correctly, one of his emails to everyone stated he's got all these things going that another person working on this outside of being involved with him would just make things harder to get going and move along for the city. And the mayor is our person for our policies. And Councilmember Dowd stated she wasn't, the purpose, initially she stated the purpose of this equity task force was not to change, not for the city, but for our residents. But then it followed through with, but then it would come out of there with changes of policies. So the changes of policies for the city would come through the mayor's office. So I'm kind of, you see where I'm coming from there. So I would like them, if the mayor doesn't mind giving us his take on this, I would appreciate it, President Younger.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Okay, well, so the you've all seen the emails that I've sent out, and we've covered a very, it's been a big part of my agenda coming into office was to, develop an administration and create a city that acknowledges and values equity and diversity. And you all know the journey that it took to get, to where we are today with our work, our workforce equity and inclusion policy. You know all of the programs that were in place that value people, value us as a human race, and that ranges from affordable housing to rental assistance to weatherization to the new program that you've approved with the partnership for chemical addiction and untreated mental illness, and I tell you, this has been a nonstop every day effort that's been formalized into a program. And I've consolidated all of it into emails that you've seen lately. And my biggest, while I'm intrigued about an equity task force, I'm also would not want to see efforts being duplicated. And in a task force, how I envision a task force and what you would do would almost duplicate everything that is already being done by my administration. And so then you would have to go out into the community and try to figure out what is it you're going to try to accomplish. And one of the things that I know in my this is my 11th year in elected city office, and then 2.5 years as a planning commissioner before that, I've never seen a council-led task force that didn't have the administration overseeing it, or at least administering it as part of a program with specific goals. For me, I have to have measurable, specific goals and a budget to get us to where we need to be. And if it's not what I'm already doing and I'm saying me with 370 employees, if it's not what we're doing, then I need to understand what it is. And obviously, I'm not sure yet there's a clear goal yet of what we're trying to do. And that's what I'm trying to learn tonight. I appreciate Pat, or Councilmember Sullivan, you're recognizing all we've done. The PAC meetings don't just kind of all of a sudden, they're in vogue because we're finally waking up to the inequities in myself and Chief Burchett have been doing this for a long time. Partnering for Youth Achievement, PYA, NAACP meetings and dinners and spending evenings for law enforcement and community together with myself involved. This has been going on a long time. And the Safe Place program, these are hard, long efforts that actually take months and months, and in some cases years to implement. So if a task force was to try to steer the city towards being more involved like we've already been doing for 10 years, then I would say, well, we're already doing that. And so I'm here to listen. I am here to listen. Pat, did I answer, Councilmember Sullivan, did I kind of answer or get to what you were talking about, or? Yes,
sir, you did. The duplication of effort is as well as the fact that the administration, if we as council members go out and do something separate without the administration can't know what those situations are that need the administration's actions until they come back to you. And it could be you're involved in it already. You're out there. And so that's what I wanted to point out. And the duplication of efforts. And if there's a budget, what's that budget going to go to, and where's it going to come from? There's all these questions. So I wanted to also just thank you for all the effort you've put in. And especially for the response you have sent out, because you have defined what has happened in your administration for the past 3 years. And there's an awesome amount of work that your administration has done. So I just wanted to say thank you for that too, and just put out there that this is feeling like a lot of duplication of effort. And so I'm still waiting for others to speak and give their opinions. But thank you very much, Mayor, and then Councilmember Dowgs, thank you for bringing this forth. And also so in your mind, you started with, going back to my earlier, you started with it's not the city that you're trying to do this equity task force for, but for the residents, but then later came back and said you would bring it back to the city to change policy. So I'm confused with that position without the mayor being involved with that.
Well, here's an example of some that happened in the past that if some of you guys remember, we had hate propaganda on our telephone poles, in Ziploc bags, on rocks, and put in people's yards, right? We had a bunch of community members come to us and demand some action. And it kind of caught us all off guard because some of us didn't know about it. So I would see it as the community saying, hey, we have propaganda being posted up and what we need to talk about this propaganda, right? And so then we talk about it. Then the discussion happens. I see a council person, I mean, I say me, but a council person then reports back and says they have hate crimes. They want to know if there's things being done. So now you guys are aware of the hate crimes or the propaganda. We currently do have white supremacists in Kitsap County and in Bremerton. One thing I want to say, Mayor, it's not to duplicate anything you're doing. It's more to, and it doesn't even have to be called a task force. That's just what Bainbridge Island called theirs, right? Kitsap County calls theirs Human Rights Council. It doesn't have to be called that particularly, but we want to recognize racial equity and equality as either we're lacking or need or that need. So I want to recognize that, and it doesn't have to be a task force, but I don't want to be caught off guard with propaganda that's being posted all over telephone poles that we don't know, and then 30 people or 20 people show up at council and present us with that, and then we're at the task of figuring out what we need to do from there. So if we're having this committee, not necessarily a task force, and we have a open discussion and dialogue of some of the issues and concerns, then we bring this back to the table and say, what can we do to fix this situation? I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, granted, and maybe it's going to be one of those kind of things. They're going to be, we have a population of, we have a big city, we are 7 people, not including our staff. We don't have the eyes all over our community, and these individuals in our community are the ones that would be sharing concerns and issues and problems in our community. And with that, I'm going to move it to Councilmember Wheat.
Let me jump in real quick.
Thank you.
I don't know if a lot of people know this. Chief Burchett and myself were actually met with the community leaders that are very interested in equity and justice and very, very much against the hate groups. As we all, we don't support hate, but we actually met the very first day after the weekend event with several members and started to formulate a plan, educate folks on what the limitations of free speech and where free speech leaves and where danger and inciting violence begins. And there's a fine line that we all have to, you as a council, especially me as a mayor, have to be cognizant of as I'm charged with enforcing our laws. And so now I see where this is good conversation, because at least it kind of brings out more of things that I do and what we do. But it also, I think, Councilmember Dowds, and this is your discussion, I'm going to back out, but I think what you're going is how do we have ongoing discussions, or something where you're getting feedback on a continual basis, rather than and I'm not sure yet how this plays out. But I can tell you though how when it happens, when we get together, these aren't the first time we've seen. These are the continuation of ongoing discussions and conversations we have with the same folks that are concerned about this. We end up at African American churches. We talk in front of groups when hate comes out. We help clean up graffiti. Some officers volunteer on their time off. If it gets to that point, this is stuff that we don't really talk about, that I do and the chief does, and then some of the command staff does, because this impacts our community tremendously. I don't know what the answer is or how the race force task force fits in, the equity task force, but this is what we do, that a little bit of what we do that you might not see.
Councilmember Wheat.
Councilmember, hang on, Leslie. Councilmember Wheat, please. Thanks.
Thank you. First, I just want to say that one of the examples Councilmember Dowds gave about, just as one thing that a race equity task force might be able to do is to address some old and archaic practices or policies or municipal code that we have in place. And it is the purview of the legislative body of the city, which is us, the city council, to change municipal code. So that would not be duplicating the administrative side of the city's efforts, for example. However, I do take a bit of a different view about whether 1976 constitutes old and archaic, because that's the year I was born, and so I don't know about that. But anyway, I think, you know, this is really about creating space for conversation. And you know, a body of you know, one or two council members and a body of community members, perhaps up to 7. That's how Bainbridge Island has formed theirs: 2 council members, 7 community members, to give advice to the council around racial equity. That's not currently being done, and so that would not duplicate efforts. You know, bottom line, let's listen to the one council member we have who's a person of color, Councilmember Dowds, who's calling for us to form a race equity task force. Let's listen to our communities of color who are represented by various leading organizations in our community, like Erase, who has called for every jurisdiction in Kitsap County to create a race equity task force. I applaud the you know, efforts of Mayor Wheeler. He's doing more than I've seen done in this community for at least the time I've been here. And I really appreciate the administration's you know, efforts along these lines. However, the next mayoral administration may not have the same focus. So it's important that we as a city council act according to our community's urging. And, you know, racial inequity is so much bigger than any particular council district in Bremerton. So the fact that each of us are free to go out and talk to folks about whatever we want has not been enough to bring about racial equity in our community. I wish it were, but it hasn't been. And if it were, we wouldn't be seeing this urging and all the community comments supporting the formation of a race equity task force. And also, you know, for those people who might doubt that racial inequities occur in our communities, just one data point among so many is a study that was really compelling to me that indicated that basically it was a resume study where the exact same resume, all the same details, all the same work experience, everything exactly identical on two resumes that were submitted. One of the resumes had a culturally Black person's name as the person's name who was submitting it. And the other resume, identical to the other, except for the name, which was a culturally white name. And there was a huge disparity in how many callbacks, with the culturally Black name resume getting substantially less callbacks for interviews. So it's real. And, you know, another thing that's a data point in our particular community, as Mayor Wheeler has, you know, his administration has put together, which is the workforce equity and diversity work program. You know, that indicates that our city employees and department heads and leaders do not reflect the demographics of our diverse county. And Bremerton's even more diverse than the county as a whole. So the employee demographics are even less reflective of our demographics here in the city of Bremerton. Let's see. Also, I wanted to let you know that I located and watched the Bainbridge Island study session on BCAT, where they discussed forming a race equity task force. And they did vote during that same study session unanimously to form a race equity task force. It was a simple it was a simple motion, something to the effect of moving to create a race equity task force comprised of no more than 3 council members and no more than 7 community members to be chosen through a public interview process. And then it went from there after that. And I think it's important that we not front load too much of what we want our race equity task force to do, because the eventual members of that task force are going to be tasked with, you know, creating their own vision and their own you know, mission and values. So let's see, I have some more comments I want to make. Let's see. So, you know, going back to the makeup of our employees and the data that Mayor Wheeler has provided us, you know, I really wish that the demographics of our employees did reflect, or I wish they do. I wish that they do reflect our, you know, the makeup of our community, but they don't, and that's why we need action around racial equity at all levels and branches of government. And, you know, as you all know, you know, similar to the federal level, we have different branches of government. So, of course, there's the executive branch, that's Mayor Wheeler. There's the, you know, legislative branch, that's us, the council. And there's even a judicial branch, like the Supreme Court, there's a municipal court. So we do different things. And so it's fantastic that Mayor Wheeler's doing so much on the administrative side of the city, but we need to do our part as the legislative body. Like, we wouldn't be okay if, you know, the president were doing something that we considered really important and worthwhile to pursue at the federal level, but the Congress was just doing nothing at all and just saying, oh no, we don't want to duplicate the efforts of the president. Because we have a different function, we're a different branch of the government. And so, you know, I really appreciate that the city council members, a majority of us, were willing to move this forward for study today. So thank you to those who supported that. I really appreciate that. I think, you know, as others have said, it's a very, very timely issue. And our community's awareness and acknowledgement of racial inequity has really increased lately, and I'm heartened by that. You know, the question that we have to ask ourselves is, you know, what are we as the legislative branch, the policymakers? We make policy. So when Councilmember Dowd mentioned policy, that's what legislators do. They make policy. What are we doing toward to work toward racial equity? You know, a year and a half ago, and I'm getting toward the end of my comments here, so don't worry, but a year and a half ago, I was proud to be a part of passing the Equity and Inclusion Resolution. And we must continue to carry that torch. We must continue to make those words live with action in the present and the future. So, you know, hopefully all of you have had an opportunity to read all of the community's comments that they've made. Like Councilmember Dowd said, I can't even remember how many, I lost count how many we had in support of this. I didn't see a single comment saying we don't need this. Like I said, Erase, which their letter was published in the Kitsap Sun recently, has called for this, and they're made up of various, they're a collective of local organizations focused on racial equity. So if they felt like we were doing enough already, they wouldn't be calling for this. And, you know, over the weekend, as part of the celebration of Juneteenth, hundreds of community members gathered and marched and called for action. And I'm hearing that call. I really take it to heart. And I just hope that, you know, you're willing to join me and actually Councilmember Dowd, who has called for this formation of the Race Equity Task Force, and taking action to support our community's will. I look forward to seeing us take action to do our part as one of 3 city branches of government to empower a race equity task force to help us view our decisions and actions through a racial equity lens. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Any other questions or comments from the council before
Eric, yeah, before you start, Eric, can I share, can I do a share screen?
If you're able to, go ahead. Sure.
Let's try it. Do you guys see the picture that's in front of you?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, this is Kitsap County
Yeah. Mhm.
and based on 2010 census. Okay, if this is a heat map of people of color, all right? And if you look at the red, that is the heavy populated groups of people of color. I could see why Bainbridge Island put one, because they don't have many people of color, and that conversation needed to be had because there's people that were people of color being discriminated on. But look at our community as a whole. Can you see my mouse moving, or is that, I'm not sure, I've never shared a screen. Okay, so if you look at our community, look at this. This is our community, and we need to represent our community. I mean, this is a heat map from 2010. I can imagine what our 2020 census is looking like. So I just wanted to put that picture in your head that we have people of color here. We represent people of color. We're not doing enough, and we need to have that conversation. All right, Eric, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, if you'd stop presenting there. Mike Simpson, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, that's a nice graphic. I know that that in a bit of history of the area. So in the 1920s, the largest per capita member of the Ku Klux Klan was in Tacoma, and in 2000, the largest per capita percentage of mixed marriages in the entire world was here in the Pacific Northwest. So things have changed significantly. Okay, we're by and large not an area that advocates racism. Now we may have a few small pockets of idiots that decide that they feel racially superior for one reason or another. You know, they're stupid, and that's really all there is to it. And they're fewer than we really think, and they're fewer than we believe. But there's racism of all kinds. And we need to stamp out racism wherever it rears its ugly head. If any group advocates for any racial superiority for one reason or another above another race, we need to speak out against it. We need to concentrate on the things that unify us, not the things that divide us. And when we talk about all these different demographics and that we can't represent districts because we're not people of color, that's kind of idiotic. We represent we represent the district as who we are. We cannot change the immutable qualities of our person, and we need to focus on the content of our character, not the color of our skin. And we're all Americans. In any crowd of people, we can talk to any crowd of people, and whatever the topic is, 60% of the people there are going to agree with us because we have similar ideas and we have similar beliefs. Now, those ideas that we have with that crowd of people are going to vary from person to person. We might find that we're as high as 80% because, well, gee, 80% of the time we agree on things. But we need to focus on what unites us as a people. And what unites us as a city council is that we all live here in Bremerton. We all work together here in Bremerton. We all love this city. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here doing what we're doing. And we all need to work on that. That needs to be the basis of where this comes from. So, and it sounds like I'm belaboring the point, but Leslie, when I asked you what is the guiding principle behind the Race Equity Task Force, shouldn't it be what unites us rather than what divides us, what brings us together? And that's what all the people are out marching and demonstrating for. They're demonstrating because they want to bring everyone together and unite us, not divide us. And I ask you sincerely, where do we want to go with this? Because this is the guiding principle that we need. If we're going to push forward with this, we need to know where it's going to be in 10, 20, 15 years, however far down the line it goes. But we can't just do it to do it and not have some sort of guiding idea behind it, some sort of unifying principle that makes it all work for us. And that's where I'm going. That's what I want to know is, we've talked about, we've danced around the issue. We've talked about some things, but where does it go from here?
I'll give you a chance to answer that. If you wish to pass, we'll go to Michael.
Did you say pass on to Michael?
And, you're welcome to respond to Mike Simpson's comments. Otherwise, I'll go to Michael Goodman.
I'll pass on that and let's see if we can get some more input on. It's a discussion right now.
So,
Okay, Mike.
you know, taking in everything that's been said, you know, the citizens of Bremerton are definitely asking for this. And it's a way, I think, to sort of intentionally formalize like some of the work that the mayor and Chief Burchett are doing. They're having these conversations, but unless it's sort of formalized, it may not feel as welcoming or everyone's invited. It might seem like sort of private conversations or them just getting the, you know, answers when they need them. Mike Simpson had kind of mentioned about like the government growing. This is, to me, the opposite of that. This is this is getting, my shirt actually says power to the people. This is getting the people in Bremerton to advise us on what we're doing. Because I'm telling you right now, everything people are saying is true. We don't have the answer. We don't know what to do next. We need this input from people on the streets. If you guys all don't, I do. I want to hear what these folks say. I don't know what to tell them they have to do because I don't know that answer to get that information. They need to come together. They need to talk about things with us, interact with us, and we need to kind of continue to figure this out. It's not about what we're doing, and we're doing excellent, excellent things. It's about what we don't even know we could be doing. So it's so much beyond and so much bigger than where we're at right now. And I think that's all. I had a couple other things, but they were. I'll move on to someone else.
Thank you, Michael. Other questions or comments? And then I promise you this, then let me ask my questions and we can have another round. I won't be the final word on this. So go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you. Great discussion. This has been really eye-opening, and it was good to hear the mayor's perspective as well, which led me to a couple areas of concern, I guess, or one area of concern is on scope. We heard about the duplication and potential burdens to the administration, so I just want to be sensitive to that. Would the scope of the task force be solely on city council legislation, or would it be kind of a more broad, and then we'd start getting into that duplication area? That was one question.
Leslie, that's for you.
I know, I missed that question. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that, Kevin? Sorry.
Absolutely, yeah. Just the scope, would the scope of the task force, for lack of a better term, be focused on city council legislation? There's the code.
Yes, I would see it as that. I would see that we have community members bring us the issues and concerns, then we look at ways of looking at policies that we can fix it. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And then my last comments, just let's see. Well, a couple things. I was reading through our code, and I see manhole. It's like, it's a maintenance hole. You know, manhole's old language. I'm sensitive to that because I've worked for the city of Seattle, and they're really progressive on those things. And, you know, it's tough to get used to, and it creates a little bit of division, you know, when you make a change like that. It's such a small change, but going from a manhole to a maintenance hole, it means something. And I think that's important. So I wouldn't mind taking a look at our code specifically and doing that. And the last comment's just, you know, you're asking for permission. Why don't you just ask for forgiveness and have a summit? You know, have a couple council members get out there and have the community provide the justification for this. That might be a middle ground for everybody. And then see if you get people interested in reading through all of our codes. So I know it's a tough read. So that's all my comments for tonight. Thanks.
And that was a perfect comment regarding the manhole. I mean, that's an equity lens that we need to look at.
Okay, other questions or comments? All right, so I guess my turn for, so I've just been listening, and I'm right in the middle in all this, like I usually am on almost all our issues, right in the middle. Maybe that's why I'm council president. I try to move us forward. So I understand the argument for some type of task force. I'm not sure that's the name of it. And I had some questions written down, and I think Councilmember Wheat answered one of them. And one of them was on the mechanics on how do you pick community members. And I heard that they have 3 council members. That's one proposal, and then no more than 7. I don't know what the number is, but then it would be an application process. Leslie, I noticed in the support that's in the packet, a lot of the people are from outside the city of Bremerton limits. Particularly, I see a lot of Bainbridge Islanders. Is your vision as of today to limit this like all our other committees where we have citizens, we require citizenship, residency, I should say, in Bremerton?
Yes, because, and limit to a certain number, because when you start moving big, you're not going to get a lot accomplished. So my goal is limiting to a certain amount of people, definitely applying for it like our other committees and appointments, and being as diverse as possible.
Sure, and I see a head nod for Lori Wheat, so I'm going to work on this rest of the council to see if we can reach common ground here. We all agree you would have to be a resident of Bremerton to be on this committee. Are we in agreement on that?
Yes.
It's not, okay, very good. Now this is going to be a little unorthodox, but as you know, I rely on Lori Smith, who's been around, I don't want to say how many years, you know how long she's been around. Lori, can you refresh the council's memory on, traditionally we have regular committees which don't usually have input from the public. They're like, we had Public Safety and Parks, we had, well, you know them, Public Works, the Finance Committee consists of 3 council members, and sometimes we have guest speakers. And to the best of my knowledge, recollection, we had an ad hoc parking committee, which was a different animal. It had council members, it had people from the administration, and it had community members, mostly downtown Bremerton. And then before my time, we, maybe Leslie, you were on this, the tree committee, remember, has to do with, you know, I don't want to get into that, but you know, we had a tree committee. Lori, in our history of Bremerton, have we had any other type of committees that other than I just mentioned?
Yes, I did find that there was a parks task force committee a few years ago, had Carrie Bozeman and a lot of community members. And I think it was at a time when there were a lot of cuts to the Parks Department, a lot of service cuts, due to the recession. And so when I was kind of looking at our past history, that seemed to be the closest, but it wasn't really a council ad hoc committee. I think it's like, you know, where I don't even remember how it initially came to be.
I do now.
I do too.
Jim McDonald basically appointed Carrie and some others. He was a council president at the time. And he said, hey, would you like to run with this? And he did. Carrie kind of had his own parks committee and came back and reported to the council.
Yep, I was on that as well, and that was to decide because we couldn't fund our parks and how do we want to go to a park district. So that was why that one was formed. But we have like our planning commission, and maybe this is a racial commission. We have our audit committee. We have our parks commission. So we have various citizen-led, staff-led ones as well.
Right, I understand it, but you hit the key is staff-led. I'm just thinking about, you know, traditional council committees. Lori, I'm going to let you complete your thoughts or your comments.
Oh, well, yeah, so typically what seems to happen is that the idea is presented and then it's given to the administration. And, or if the council has met, like with, say, the parking committee in the past, they usually then hand it over to the mayor.
Okay.
It's not, owned or, you know, kept in the council. It's just council members have sat on the committees, but because I think Greg mentioned this, a lot of times you need department staff on those committees. So they're ran by the administration.
Right. So I see three different avenues you can, Leslie, you could choose on this, three different paths. One is, as was suggested, having a task force. And I think as Lori mentioned, like 3 council members, if it's 2 council members, obviously can't be a quorum. And then community members, and I like the idea of 7. And then the interview process, and I think we all agreed they would be residents. That's one avenue. And then perhaps you could meet and you come up with, I actually like Bainbridge Island actually came up, I assume after they met, they came up hopefully with a mission statement, vision statement, and purpose, and they didn't dictate that to the before the task force formed. So I understand that. You don't necessarily have, oh, this is what we're gonna do, X, Y, Z, because you wanna meet with the people and get their input, right? I get that. So that's one way of doing it. So that's option 1. Option 2 is more of a hybrid model, and that's working more closely with the mayor. So the mayor, we're giving him credit, and rightly so, for all these initiatives he's done. And luckily he's been on the forefront. You know, you read the long, lengthy email. Before all the recent civil unrest, I think he was ahead of the game. The city of Bremerton is a big ship as far as the hiring. You know, once you hire an employee, they typically are here a long time. So it's going to take a fairly long period of time before the employees more accurately reflect the citizen population. I think we all understand that. You can't just flip a switch and everything's going to be taken care of. But I think you could see that the mayor has put in policies that hopefully are addressing this situation. So one thing would be to dovetail with the mayor. It would require the mayor's blessing, of course, and coming up with some type of task force that's working with the administration. I also understand the argument that Lori Week mentioned that, hey, look, we're a separate form of government and we should be looking at this separately. And I heard the argument about looking at policies and procedures, et cetera. To me, that's too narrowly focused. You might hear me surprised to say that because I always preach about staying in your lane. But one way to address that would be via committee, and that would be to resurrect the Public Safety and Parks Committee, but I would scratch the parks portion. The reason I would scratch parks is we already have a Parks Commission, which is, in my opinion, one reason why we don't have a planning, a DCD committee, because we have a planning commission. So if we use public safety, bring that back, then you're going to have more direct involvement with police and fire. And given recent events, that might be a good thing. And not necessarily on a negative, not necessarily on an oversight thing. When I think about public safety and police, and Leslie, you wrote a letter to the editor, I believe, recently. It's about a better connection with our police force. And there could possibly be offshoots. For example, a community outreach, like a citizens academy. So folks that don't quite understand what police officers face on a day-to-day basis, maybe they have the opportunity to experience some of these things. I know other communities have citizens academies. So I'm kind of struggling with which one of those 3 options would be best. And I wouldn't mind hearing from the rest of the council. I don't know if we want to rush into a decision tonight. I also agree with Kevin in that there's nothing stopping you from grabbing another council member and having a hearing and running with it. He's got a perfectly valid point. Roger is on the line. Maybe he can correct me, but if the rest of the council doesn't object to it, you can just do that. But I understand you want something official. I get that too. I think you do. So I'm struggling with this. I like the mechanics of the committee route, public safety, and if you want to call it race equity task force, I don't necessarily like that. I like more of a broader thing that ties in with our council goals of community outreach committee And I still don't know what the mechanics of that would look like, because usually that's just the council members and staff, and sometimes we've got outside people. But you could build in an avenue where the public communicates with the chair. And then you could bring that person or group in to your committee. See where I'm going, Leslie? So you could have, within the city council framework, public safety, community outreach, community, we can work on the last part, work on the language. Someone is the chair, and what I like about the idea is that normally if someone has a problem with the administration, they go to the mayor. We got a great mayor, but sometimes maybe the next mayor is maybe not so open to hearing from the public. So this would give citizens, hey, you know, this is really bothering me. Like you mentioned, Leslie, I think you mentioned, Lori, this is really bothering my community. Who can I talk to? Well, the current mayor, and again, I'm not talking about the current mayor, but the current mayor, he or she doesn't care. Who can I talk to? Well, hey, look, there's this community outreach committee, and I can get an ear of a council person. Now, that's not to say you can't do that now via an email, but it's a more formal channel. And I think that's what maybe some of you are looking for, a more formal structure. Go ahead, Lori. Am I on the right path, or am I going the wrong way?
Oh, thank you, Council President Younger. I guess for me, my main concern is to listen to our communities of color, because we haven't been doing that. And it's clear we haven't been doing it because they're calling for us to form a race equity task force. And the one member of color we have on our council is calling for us to form a race equity task force. And we need to listen to them. So I think it's important. I think the words are important. I think calling it a public safety committee would dilute the fact that, I mean, I understand some people are apparently just uncomfortable with calling it a race equity task force, but that's what's being asked for by our community. And I think we need to recognize that. You know, we've gotten so many comments from the community and from Erase, and Erase represents a lot of other organizations, like I believe I know some if not the NAACP, members of the NAACP, and CARE, and I believe Kayak, you know, Surge. I don't know if you're familiar with those groups. If you're not, then that's a problem, and we need advice from these people. So, you know, it's important that we use, words are important because they indicate how important something is taken, and being officially sanctioning something rather than it just being some volunteer thing a couple of council members or one council member goes off and does on their own and spends their own time doing is important. The official sanctioning by the council is important because it recognizes that we as a council are taking racial equity seriously, and it's not just one or two council members who are doing so. Thank you.
Sure, understood. But what I'm saying, just like our resolution that we passed a couple of years ago, I want to expand it beyond race and equity. I'm sorry, I want to be an inclusive, gay rights, whatever. It needs to be more than that. It just needs to be, treat everyone with dignity. And I see your hand, Mike, hang on. I understand the situation at the moment, but if we're just messing with words, that's fine. But I really sincerely believe it should be about more than just race and equity. So I think it should be for all underrepresented groups. So we're going to go to Mike first. Go ahead, Mike.
Council President, I think you hit it on the head with that. You know, focusing only on race leaves out significant portions of our population. I mean, looking at the mayor's policy that he put out, he's got demographics on part of our population, but there's a significant portion of our population that it doesn't focus on, and it doesn't show. It doesn't demonstrate, you know, our LGBT community. Okay, I know in my district there's quite a few members of that community, and you know there are quite a few members. I knocked on a lot of doors and talked to a lot of people, and you know, that's not accurately reflected in any of the demographics that the city has. Yet we know that we have people who fall into that community, and for us to focus solely on the color of someone's skin and not on all the other minority groups that are out there, that begs the question, why exclude them? Why leave them out in the cold? I think that, and LGBTQ, it goes the spectrum of color. It's not just white people, it's everybody. So why wouldn't we have an outreach to all of these groups, and not color it with race and limit it just to that? If the idea is that we're supposed to, we as a council, we want to reach out to all the diverse portions of our community and make sure that they're represented, and make sure that all of their issues are addressed. I mean, we hit it a little bit with the safe space stickers that we put up in different businesses. So why would we confine ourselves only to a race equity when it should be inclusion for everyone? It should be the things that unite us. It should be all of these things together. And I think Council President Younger hit it on the head. I think doing something, public safety community outreach committee, these things could probably work really well and hit all of these bases. I think that might really be the way to go, rather than just focusing specifically on one tiny data point of persons of color. That's a very narrow definition, and dependent upon where you're from, if you're from California, you can self-identify as whatever you want. It doesn't matter what your immutable qualities were before. It's whatever you decide you are, and that is probably going to come here too. So focusing and saying, well, you can't represent me because you're a person of color, or I'm not a person of color, or whatever, is kind of silly. We have to focus on what unites us, not what divides us. So I think that the council president pretty well hit it, and I think that's probably the right avenue to go. And this provides that outreach to the community, and all these different groups that have issues, they are free to come in and bring the issues forward. And Councilman Dawes, you pretty much kind of explained it, that, well, we had this issue that happened in our community where some racist idiots put the issue, or put out messages in people's yards, and well, the system worked. People reported to us and told us, hey, we have a problem. And we went about and we took steps to fix it. Now, we weren't very quick in responding, but we did something to it. And this is validation that our system is working. Now, if it's not working fast enough for some, well, then we need to do more community outreach, and that's where I think this committee can work. But if we focus solely on the idea that it's about race, because it's not, it's about equality for all.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And then, Michael, I saw you had your hand up, but we'll go back to Laura. You had your hand up first.
Okay, and I'll just make a couple of quick comments and then move on, so that Councilmember Goodnow might want to respond. So I don't know that I was clear when I made my comments earlier, but out of those three options that Council President Younger proposed, I think number 3, a public safety committee. Council President Younger, have you had the opportunity to attend any of the PACT meetings?
No.
Okay, yeah, so I mean, speaking of duplication of efforts, a PACT is doing what you're describing. That's exactly what they do. It's it's police and community together. That's what that stands for. And I know Councilmember Dowds, I'm not sure if any others, I know Mayor Wheeler have all, Chief Burchett, of course, and Captain Wolf, I think Captain Plum, probably other police officers, I'm sure, in our department, and other departments have participated in many of those PACT meetings, and that's what they do. So, I mean, that would be duplicating what they do. And then the second option, collaborating with the administration, for one, I feel like we're in different lanes. And I know Council President Younger often, as you stated, talked about that, and I think it's important in this particular discussion to remember that we're the legislative body, and Mayor Wheeler is the administrative head, and so I feel like to start off at least, it would be so much more responsive to the community in a nimble way if we don't need to have a whole budget discussion this fall and then maybe start doing something in 2021, because the time is now. And so I feel like really, I mean, the option that makes sense to me is option one, as far as the 3 options Council President Younger has you know, suggested. Thank you.
Okay, and who's staffing this, Lori? If we're going with the Race Equity Task Force, who's staffing this?
Who staffs the audit committee?
Christine.
Okay, then perhaps that could be, perhaps one of our council staff members could staff it.
Okay, Michael.
So I'm kind of a big gay in Kitsap County. I've been running the Pride event here for 20 years. I used to be the director of the HIV/AIDS Foundation. I'm the vice president of Region 2 of Interpride, which is a global Pride organization. In fact, we're doing a 24-hour virtual Pride event this weekend that's going to roll around the whole globe. Across the board, the LGBT community supports Black Lives Matter. I can tell you that my local board of Kitsap Pride, and I can tell you people in the community support Black Lives Matter, and it's because of the need that their community faces right now, and we're in solidarity with them. It doesn't mean that we're not concerned about every other faction of the diversity that makes us up. This is the biggest problem right now.
Okay.
And instead of spreading everything out evenly, let's focus on this thing that's making some of our citizens' lives, they have a different life than I have, and I want them to have the same. And it's the biggest disparity, and it's where we need to put the most attention. So, and I really applaud, you know, the idea that we want to serve everybody. And I would venture a guess, and I'm not speaking on any authority, but my friends like at the Immigrant Assistance Center would support this, even though they're mostly Hispanic, which is not a race. And they're broader than that, but I'm just saying a majority of the folks that I know there. And I bet that the Filipino community would support this. It's about helping our brothers and sisters most in need. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Okay, other comments from the council? All right, so I threw out 3 options. Leslie, you're the one that's proposing this. Do you need time, or do you want to say this is what I want to do?
So I want to move with option 1. I want to have community members and a few council members on this, and you know, the first thing we'd probably do is decide what our purpose is and what we're going to do, and I mean that's going to be some of the foreground of where we move forward.
Okay, and so like anything else the council does, we act as a body, and I don't need a formal head nod or a formal vote, but can I see head nods? Who wants to create you correct me if I'm wrong, Leslie, a race equity task force headed or has 3 people in it. Now, here's the mechanics of this. Who picks who's on the race equity task force? Normally, the council president picks who is on the committee. Roger, are you listening to this at all?
Better be.
Hang on, Lori.
Yes, I am.
I'm going to ask Roger here. Who picks the people on this? If we have a race equity task force, which isn't covered in our rules and procedures, is that covered by Robert's Rules of Order, or how's that going to work? Or do you need time to think about that one?
Well, I probably need a little bit of time. I don't know if there's really any. I think it's up to the council how they want to do it.
Okay, the majority of the council, you think?
Yeah, that's how I would look at it. And there's something wrong with my camera. It doesn't want to.
No, we know you're there. Mayor Wheeler, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just something that's been kind of crossing my mind is why not I just appoint a quick, if you wanted to just get 2 council members, appoint an exploratory committee, go out into the community, gauge what a race equity task force would look like. And then it doesn't commit the council to anything other than it gets a chance for the council representatives to go out in the community, sit down, dialogue, talk about what a task force looks like. It gives the council a chance to say, hey, this is what the administration's already doing. You know, this is what we do as a council body. You know, these are the things that we have some say over. You know, it's just a thought. And then you could do it, you could give it a month or 2 weeks, however long you think, come back to the council and say, this is what we heard.
Okay, hang on, Lori. This is Leslie's project at this point. So Leslie, I'm going to give you a first shot at responding to the mayor, and then Lori, you can have a comment. Go ahead, Leslie.
So Bainbridge Island has 2 council members and 7 community members. Kitsap County's human council, I forgot the name of it, sorry, has, I wrote it down, has 15 and no electeds on that one. So I really want to move forward with a #1 option as far as the mayor appointing someone. Say that again?
It wouldn't be me. No, it would be you. It would be the council.
Oh, us.
Yeah, making a decision. That sometimes exploratory committees, when you're not quite certain what you really want to do with all this energy and this the pent up demand, maybe going out finding that out what it is. You know, that would be council driven. I don't have the staff. I can tell you right now, I do not have the staff. We're trying to keep up on racial justice and equity already. We've got a lot of things in the fire and a whole bunch going on. And our workload's doubled, believe it or not. We'll share it with you what Chief Burchett's already doing with forming an internal committee. That's probably might even be some of this, well, it won't be the same folks. These are folks, I'm not sure it'll be the same, but a lot of stuff happening. So our workload, we recognize, we hear, and we're already acting.
Okay, Lori.
So as I mentioned earlier, I took it upon myself to find and watch the Bainbridge Island study session where they discussed and made a motion to form a race equity task force, which was voted unanimously to be done. So I know exactly how they did it. That's a neighboring jurisdiction in our county that could serve as a model. The way that they did it in their study session is they made a motion. So for example, move to create a race equity task force comprised of no more than 3 council members and no more than 7 community members to be chosen through a public interview process. And then they also, perhaps as part of that motion, if I recall correctly, appointed 2 council members, I think actually 3, they appointed 3 council members to be a part, to be the council members. And then those council members then went out and through a public interview process started advertising for and doing interviews for community members of the task force. So I hope that's helpful in terms of understanding one way that it's been done in our neighboring jurisdiction.
So, and before we comment on that, just I think we're all aware, and the city of Bainbridge Island has a different form of government than we do. So they have a city manager, and then they have a council president / mayor. And so basically they have one race equity task force, whereas we're going to create our race equity task force, and then we're going to be side by side with what the mayor's doing. So we're creating 2 task force, if you will. And my preference would be to merge the efforts, but I'm hearing, I guess we're going a different direction. That's fine. And if we're going in that different direction, again, Roger, if you're listening, I want to make this as easy for the council and the mechanics as possible. If we have 3 people on a committee, 3 council members, then usually it's going to have to be a posted public meeting. It's going to have tape recorded, and I'm not opposed to any of that. But if we had 2 council members, would we still need to, in other words, would they have more freedom to go out and about the community without giving 24-hour notice, without having a tape recording, et cetera? Do you have any thoughts on that, Roger?
Well, my first thought is if they have a quorum of a committee on one of our committees on it, is that an issue? I don't know. We'd have to look into this a little bit. I think the fewer council members you have on it, the less of an issue it becomes. But I'd have to take a look at that, to be honest with you, because I don't know if that's going to, you know, it's created by the council, and it's not. That's a tough one. I'd have to take a look at that.
Yeah,
I'd have to take a look at that, and we'll do that.
Okay, do you guys want to form this tonight? It sounds like I'm sensing impatience that you want to form this tonight, or do you want to get answers back?
I would like to move. Oh.
Go ahead, Leslie.
I would like to move forward. I would like to also there's 2 council members for the Bainbridge Island. I think it's just 2. I just looked at their website. But then I'm reading the scope of work. Their scope of work was to develop a series of events through the end of the year designed to promote awareness and raise the community's level of engagement around race and to encourage dialogue between Bainbridge Island and its elected officials.
Agency.
And the task force will invite the Government Alliance on Race. They use an outside group to help with them. And then their mission is Bainbridge Island Race Task Force is committed to building awareness, solutions, and leadership for racial justice by generating transformative ideas, information, and experiences. We define racial justice as the systemic fair treatment of people of all races, resulting equitable opportunities and outcomes for all. So they have a purpose. The purpose is to advise and counsel to the City Council on matters of identifying programmatic, community, and legislative options to seek suggestions on how the city can help Bainbridge Island be an open and welcome community for all. So, I mean, it's pretty simple, and we can even make it to that point. So I would love to move forward with this today.
Okay, so head nods from the council. All right, let's just get this over with.
I would like to make a motion.
No, okay, I think it could just be more informal. Do we want to go ahead and proceed with this, and we just do it?
Well, I just want to be clear on what we're proceeding with. So if I could make a motion.
I don't have a problem with that, other than just, again, let me make sure. So this is, I'm thinking out loud. This was posted for a study session. We did announce that no action would be taken tonight. I don't have a problem with the motion. I mean, the head nod was going to say, go ahead and proceed. Roger, can you give me some guidance on this one?
You're authorized.
Go ahead.
Did our agenda say there was no action at the study session?
The study said that it's open to the public, no opportunities for input, no action is anticipated. And then I said, with the exception of the executive session.
Because just having the meeting and moving things forward, that's taking action. So, I mean, typically you can take action at a study session, but I don't know what your publication.
Well, it says information only. Presentation on proposed Race Equity Task Force, RETF, and it says information only. And for the record, I'm not trying to, I know some people are gunning for me or whatever, but I didn't even put it on the agenda. So get that out of your mind right now, please. So with that, Roger, should we go ahead and make a motion, or do we have to wait for the next opportunity?
Well, I think to be safer, you should wait. I mean, I think you could if you wanted to, but that could be, you know, you said it's information only, now you're taking action on the issue.
Yeah.
And so people will not be anticipating that.
So this would give Leslie and the proponents.
Point of order. The other people are getting from me as a personal remark, and that's not allowed under our rules and procedures.
Okay, taken. So then this would afford Leslie to go ahead and go into more detail the specifics of her plan, correct? Roger.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
So then if we don't make, we don't do the motion, it sounds like we can't, it would afford Leslie to to put in writing what the actual proposal is for the public to consider as well, put it in a packet.
That's up to council if that's what you want to do.
Okay. All right.
That's just information. You're putting a packet together for the next meeting, so I don't see that an issue with that at all.
Okay. All right. Is this something that we need to vote on in an agenda bill for the public, or is this a study session item, or are you saying the council has a choice?
I think the council has a choice. They can take it to the study session and act on it. They could take it to the, I mean, they can do the motion.
Okay. All right. So what we could do is, I'm sensing there's urgency here. We could go ahead and Leslie, go ahead and create an agenda bill. Okay. Talk to Lori.
Okay.
Talk to Lori Smith. Work on an agenda bill, but it needs to be posted, you know, same procedures as all the other departments, and get it in by Friday.
And then is this going to be voted on next week? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. I'm sensing urgency from the council, so let's go ahead and do it. Michael,
Okay.
you good with that? Michael, good now? Okay. Yeah, let's do it. Lori's good. Well, actually, see, we got the majority of the council. Kevin, you good with that? It's good. Okay, we're done. Ready? Okay. All right. Okay, next, you know what, it's 8:07. And what we're going